Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Wilkinson, Manager of Communications and Media with Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency. Today, the SPSA will provide a technical overview of wildfires in the province. I would also like to note that we are recording the call. The recording will be posted on our Facebook and YouTube pages following this call. Today, we'll hear from SPSA's President and Fire Commissioner Marlo Pritchard and SPSA's Vice President of Operations, Steve Roberts. We have a hard stop at 2 p.m. today, so we'll ask members of the media to ask one question. If we have time remaining in the meeting, we will go to follow-ups, but we do have a hard stop at 2 p.m. With that, I will turn it over to Steve Roberts with our wildfire update. Steve? Oh, Steve, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Try it again one more time. Good afternoon. Currently in the province, there are 23 active wildfires, 257 wildfires so far this year, and that compares to 146, which is our 5-year average. Weather has been cooperating with us, and the cooler temperatures and lower winds are allowing us to get more handle on some of these fires, putting crews into some of these areas that were too dangerous and high risk before. So we continue to make progress on each of the fires of note, which I'll go over here shortly. In addition, because of the moderate weather, we will be revising the fire ban this afternoon, and all areas north of the Churchill River that have received significant rain will be removed from the fire ban. For the area in south of the Churchill and the provincial forest, we will continue to monitor that, and we will make amendments to that as the weather improves. Currently, of the fires of note, Shoe Fire is 503,000 hectares in size. Highway 912, 913 remain closed due to this fire. The J. Smith Fire, northeast of Mississippi, is 139,000 hectares. No road closures or impacts at this time from this fire. The Ditch Fire by Wildfire will continue to close as in the near future is Highway 969 on the east side of Montreal Lake. Currently, Highways is working on that as well to see if we can have that reopened shortly. That fire is 170,000 hectares in size. The Pisu Fire, which is the fire impacting La Ronge and to the west of La Ronge, there are closures on Highway 2 North in the vicinity of La Ronge to limit the amount of non-essential traffic through that area. Currently, that fire is estimated at 181,000 hectares. The Pelican Fire, which is in the right adjacent to Pelican Narrows, current size 34,000 hectares. There are no road closures. Highway 135 is open to both Pelican Narrows and Sandy Bay at this time. The Club Fire, which is the fire by Creighton, still remains at a size of 80,000 hectares. And the Wolf Fire remains at a size of 130,000 hectares. The impacts of those two fires are to Highway 167 to the Nenera Beach area, and Highway 106 from the 135 junction through to Creighton. After today, those two fires will be considered one fire of note because they are immediately adjacent and are being managed centrally at the same time. So after today, the Wolf and the Club will just be referred to as a single fire of note. On a positive note, not only has the fire behavior improved, but our ability to contain and limit impact to some structures is we are starting to see some communities return. P3 individuals from Pelican Narrows have started to return. Residents of Birch Portage have returned to their small community in the Pelican Narrows area. And Wackwin, as we know from the day before, has allowed their residents to return home. And operations are underway right now to return folks home to Timber Bay, some of them, if not all of them, depending on conditions. In addition to that, the mine site, the foreign mine that had been evacuated a number of days ago, is already started stage repatriation of all of their workforce back into that mine site to recommence operations. And the SPSA continues to work and inform local leadership of improving conditions and limitations to repatriation so that decisions can be made about terminating evacuations and bringing residents home to their communities. That being said, 33 communities remain evacuated or partially evacuated in the province. The Public Safety Agency is supporting 860 individuals. The Canadian Red Cross is supporting 9,160 individuals. And as noted yesterday, we still have 295 confirmed values that have been burnt by fire. And that number will continue to grow as we put evaluation crews into some of these spots to capture whether the fire did indeed damage structures or the sprinkler systems and other measures we put in place were successful. So there will be some upgrades to that number, especially in the Denair Beach area. And that is all I have for a generalized update. I would like to offer at least a thank you to some of those agencies that have come in. We've talked about some before from across Canada and some of our US partners. We continue to see that grow. Yesterday, firefighters from Washington State and this afternoon, firefighters from Colorado will arrive into Saskatchewan to help us fight these fires. And we're augmenting those crews with Type 3 Saskatchewan firefighters. Already over 96 of those have been hired and deployed onto some of these fires. So I'll turn it back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Steve. Now we will move on to Marlo for an update. Marlo?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Stephanie. I just want to just kind of piggyback on a couple of items that Steve spoke about. We do have verification teams that have been dispatched today. We are getting into those heavily hit areas like Denair Beach to really confirm what damage and which properties have either been partially or fully destroyed. And although I know there's a lot of evacuees that have not been notified yet, we want to make sure 100% sure that those individuals or those properties are either damaged or destroyed or not damaged. So before we contact them, we know we're waiting for that information, but I can assure everyone that that process is ongoing as we speak. We currently, as Steve said, we're supporting 850 individuals in hotels. We have many other individuals across Saskatchewan in other hotels. Once we become aware of them, we immediately look after their needs while we're waiting for repatriation efforts from the community leadership and SPSA. But I do want to acknowledge that there is a backlog in some of our evacuation support. We have currently scaled up with 14 additional staff to help address that backlog. And currently we are triaging those. And what I mean by that is we're looking at the most urgent. We know that many of those individuals that have self-evacuated are staying safely with family and friends. And although they need supports, they're not in a critical position, or many of them are not in a critical position where others are. So we're triaging it. We're dealing with those ones that are of immediate need either support with food vouchers, some financial support, or a hotel. So those are the ones that we're working on. And we're going to get through that backlog as quickly as humanly possible. I do want to acknowledge also that at the 7 sites that SPSA is working on, we have staff on site basically from 8 in the morning to 12 midnight. We support the evacuees in many different activities. We're ensuring that they get their food and shelter, but also emergency clothing. And we have partnered with some NGOs to help with psychosocial supports, as well as we partnered with SHA to ensure that they have medical access when and if needed. So I just really want to say that it's a thank you to all of those across Saskatchewan, whether they're the medical professionals or NGOs that are working with us to help support these evacuees in many different locations across the province. It really is great to see. the willingness to step forward and help individuals as they're going through an extremely stressful and traumatic time doing these evacuations. I think I will stop there and we can just take questions.
Okay, and a reminder, one question, and please identify what outlet you are from. So first up, Hallie.
Good afternoon, this is Hallie from CTV. I'm just wondering if you could please speak to the difference between the roles the Red Cross and the SPSA serve when it comes to assisting evacuees. Are there particular areas that should be accessing services through one or the other, or is it at the discretion of each individual evacuee?
Thanks for the question, Hallie. It really is up to the community leaders. The communities can I guess, contract with a third-party provider, or they can come to the province in a case of the evacuations. But it is really up to the communities. When individuals are self-evacuating, again, we've asked individuals to call our 1855 line, and we will ensure that they have those supports. If they have already got the supports with the Red Cross, just because that's who they've contacted, that works out too. So I mean, we're really trying to work together to ensure that any evacuee gets those supports as necessary. I will take the opportunity now, just because I forgot in my opening remarks, is that some of those financial supports, if they haven't been rolled out right now, they will be retroactive. They will be retroactive to the evacuation date. So, but we're really working on our I guess the best that we can to get those either food vouchers or financial support out the door as quickly as we can.
Jillian.
Hi. We heard from Tim McLeod yesterday that he felt like we were turning the corner on this situation just with the wildfires. Are both of you in agreement of that? Do you feel like we're kind of over this bump of things are going to get worse before they get better?
I will turn that over to Steve from a very operational perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, as far as we've seen a turn of events, as far as we are now able to address these fires directly rather than indirectly. Our tactics have switched from aerial suppression to try and hold these fires to actual direct attack on the ground with firefighters to start securing these lines. As long as that situation stays the same, we will continue to make that progress. These fires are going to remain on the landscape for the rest of the season in many cases to some extent. So they will be constantly monitored. They will flare up at times. There will be areas we may get some small excursions, but what we were experiencing even as short as a week ago is greatly diminished. Even the fact that a couple days of reprieve have allowed us to make some operationally significant gains on some of these fires, and you're starting to see that now as people talk about repatriation.
Aaliyah.
Hi. Earlier today, the Saskatchewan Ombudsman slammed the province's wildfire response, saying she's received many complaints about people not being connected with the services. And I was just wondering if I can get either of you to respond to those concerns.
Sorry about that. No, absolutely. I'm not completely aware of everything the Ombudsman may have said, but like I said before, we are supporting the evacuees in the hotels. We have many across the province that are being supported in other hotels with their food, shelter, activities. But absolutely, we acknowledge that there is a backlog in some of those evacuation supports that have been, for the vast majority of what I'm hearing are with family and friends. And we are doing our best. We have brought in extra resources to deal with that backlog, and we are going to get those resources out the door as quickly and effectively as possible.
Nicole.
Hi there, Nicole Garn with 980 CJME. Just kind of a general question here. If it's not the weather that's the biggest challenge, just walk me through what's the biggest challenge that crews are facing on the front lines right now.
So weather has improved, but we're talking hundreds of kilometers of fire line. If you take all of these fires combined and you look at all the edges, there's a lot of ground to cover. So again, between heavy equipment and ground, it's a huge logistical issue to put people in the right place. It is why we're bringing in more crews. It's why you will see more Type 3 firefighters added. And you consider the equipment support, the housing support, all the logistics of having them out there on these significant fires on the landscape, pumps and hose and tools. So it is a large endeavor, regardless of how you look at it. And that's probably the biggest challenge in here, is the amount of effort that needs to be put in on all of these fires.
Next up is Timur.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Hi, thank you so much for taking our questions. This is Timur Durrani from the Globe and Mail. I was hoping you could please speak today to the causes of these fires again in Saskatchewan. You've previously said that much of these wildfires are the result of human-related causes, but today we've heard from federal officials, and I'm quoting Environment Canada researchers here, quote, "While a lot of fires may be started by humans, the largest fires and the most area burned come from lightning-ignited fires," unquote. I'm hoping you can comment on that.
Sure. If we look at 20 years of fire history in Saskatchewan, the largest fires and the most area burnt over that 20 years will indeed be in the far north unpopulated areas. Those start by lightning. They're not detected early. They're not posing imminent threats to communities or infrastructure. So they tend to grow larger. The boreal forest up there is thinner, shorter, sparser, and there's no physical barriers to prevent fires from growing in all directions as they're pushed by wind. So the statement that most are 50% of our fires every year over the last 20 years have been lightning caused. And if they're occurring in that ecosystem in the far north, they do tend to get much larger than the fires we see in the south. And just to kind of tie that in, that's what makes this season extremely difficult, is the amount of large fires in this heavily populated part of the forest. So that's the unique part of what's happening in 2025 that we have not seen in previous years.
Up next, Christopher.
This question is probably directed at Marlo. Chris Vandenbreek with Global News. Marlo, do you feel that the response and evacuee supports have been adequate? Would you say that they're meeting a proper standard?
Thanks, Chris. I don't know if I'm the person to ask for that. I'll be the first to tell you. But I mean, what I can tell you is that those that needed immediate hotels and those that needed immediate shelter and food, we did our utmost best to put them into hotels. We acknowledge that there is a gap for those that have self-evacuated, and we are doing our utmost best to fix that. But I don't know if there's a standard. I can tell you that it was a chaotic couple of days, but now that the situation on the response is stabilizing, and we are able to reassign staff and upscale some of those support mechanisms, we're going to absolutely address the backlog of calls for those individuals that have gone to family and friends. And as I said earlier, the supports will be to the date that they evacuated. And so I'm optimistic that we will get through this in a very short period of time.
Carla. Carla, you may be on mute. You can always type your question in the chat. Oh,
you hear me now?
Go. Yeah.
Got me. Okay. Carla Shinkar with CTV News. Just my question is just further to your mental health comment earlier. Just wondering, with some of evacuees now being away from home for, getting close to 2 weeks here, is there any more of a push to help some of these evacuees with their mental health concerns? Is it something that the SPSA is doing, or is it going to be left to other groups?
Thanks for the question. It actually, what it is I would say it's more than just SPSA. We are working with NGOs. We're working with our SHA partners to ensure that there is an avenue to get those psychosocial supports. I've got nothing but kudos to say to a number of NGOs that have stepped forward to bring forward counselors to some of our sites. So we will continue to ramp that area up to ensure that those supports are there as the need is identified, and we will continue to do the best we can to support all of our sites. We recognize the traumatic times and the stress that they're under, waiting for more information on when and if they can go home, because some do not know yet if their property has been damaged. So we are, very thankful for the commitment from the Saskatchewan Health Authority and the staff that they are supplying, as well as again those NGOs and even some volunteers that have stepped forward to help us and help those evacuees.
And up next, Jeremy.
Hi there, Jeremy Symes with the Canadian Press. I'm just wondering, with the backlog you're talking about, was anything done in preparation to anticipate this backlog, and why wasn't it addressed earlier?
It was addressed earlier. I guess I should say thank you for the question, but it was addressed earlier. But as we started to deal with it, we recognized that we did not have, probably sufficient, because the numbers of individuals calling, overwhelmed us. We did have a process in place to deal with the 1855 call line, going into evacuation support, making sure that they got called back as quickly as possible. But really what it came down is the demand outweighed or overwhelmed the ability to keep up. And so now we've had to staff up, and we will address it. So it's like everything. When you identify a gap, you do your best to close it as quickly as possible. But again, those, and I'll go back to before, those that really identified right at the start that they needed hotels, we did our best to get them into hotels immediately. And now we are, dealing with some of that backlog of calls. We do not, and I don't have the information at this point in time. I expect I will over the next 24, 48 hours, is how many of those calls are for information, or how many calls are for the support. So we'll continue to do our utmost best and get out those resources, whether they're food vouchers, financial support, or if there are individuals that have identified they need a hotel, we're going to get those out. But I do want to, flag that or identify that we are triaging those calls based on the information that we're getting immediately on the 1855 line, and it's based on that urgency. So some individuals that are saying that they're safely at family and friends may get called a little bit later than the ones that are saying that they need urgent support.
Okay, I see we have a question in the chat. Steve touched on this earlier, but would like to know if someone could please provide an update on the return to mining sites.
Sure, I can address that question. The mining site, the foreign mining site, did, based on the emergency plan, do a full evacuation of all their operational staff. Because the wildfire is stabilized in that area, it did not impact the mine site, and they are comfortable with, again, having the fire close, but obviously not a direct threat. They have made the decision to start returning their operational staff to start work again at the mine site. They will remain on alert and in contact with us for the short term, just to make sure everything stays secure. But it is their decision to go back to work. And because the fire did not impact the mine site, basically everything's ready for them to return and start operations.
Thanks, Steve. So now we can go to follow-ups. We have 5 minutes left. So Tamar?
Yeah, Timur Durrani from the Globe and Mail again. I just wanted to sort of clarify on the human-caused bit a little bit again from earlier, because yesterday from the Minister of Public Safety, Tim McLeod, we'd heard, and I'm again quoting him, he said, "We know that virtually all, if not all, of the forest fires in Saskatchewan were human-caused." And unfortunately, some of those were intentionally caused by humans. And so we thank our policing partners for continuing to investigate those situations. Are these fires this year in Saskatchewan mostly human caused, or are they natural with the lightning? I'm just trying to get an understanding of what you mean by this in terms of the area and in the north specifically. Like, could you break it down for us? Is it true as of now, when you're telling us this, that most of these fires in Saskatchewan are human caused?
At this point in 2025, of the 257 fires, less than 30 of them were caused by lightning. So well over 200 of those fires are man-caused. No lightning source to start those fires. Numerous reasons for that, from people who are doing yard cleaning and burning and do so and don't have the appropriate measures to contain those, and they get into the forest. There's people who are using quads or recreating. There's people who are doing industrial operations, whether that's farming, land clearing, even repairs to equipment in the forest that will cause some of those fires. And as Minister McLeod said, unfortunately, some will be intentionally started. There will be arson fires in that list of the 200. And you've heard from the RCMP that they've laid charges in 2 incidents.
Okay, we'll move on to Chris for a follow-up.
Chris Vandenbrekel, Global News. Steve, this one is probably for you. We talked yesterday about what people can expect in terms of service levels when they go back to certain communities. I wanted to ask you about what they should expect in their own homes. My own experience in Fort McMurray, there can be quite some unpleasant discoveries. Can you talk us through that?
Sure. One of the things that, again, it'll depend on what's happened in your community while you've been evacuated. So has the power been off? If the power's remained on, that's probably a good thing. If the power's been off, you will have spoiled food in your fridge. If the water's been off, you'll have to wait for the water to be, restarted. And of course, every time, if you've ever been off the water, they've shut it off for maintenance, your water is going to be murky and dirty for a little while till it gets run clearing again. There's probably going to be ash and debris on your deck and around you that's going to need to be cleaned up. You may even have to, you may have to wash your windows because they're going to have soot and grime on them. So depending on what's happened and how close the fire's been, you could go back to your house and it may look untouched because the fire didn't get that close. You may have all these other effects. And then in some cases, if you're in a community and you had your gas shut off, it will have to be restarted. So it really depends on your individual situation. And then again, what happened as a result of the fire. And then once you know what those are, you as an individual can have a discussion on what you need to fix, what you need to talk about with insurance companies. In other words, if it's an external problem or an internal problem. But again, most simple and most common one that people will experience, if you've been out for 2 weeks, it's the same for everybody. If you leave food in your fridge for 2 weeks, even if it's on, it's probably not good anymore. So you're going to have to start cleaning out your fridge and restock your fridge because the milk's bad. The bread's not good anymore. So that's a common item. If you had a freezer and the power didn't go out, your food in your freezer is likely good, but your fridge will not. So those are the kinds of things that people might have to expect when they go home.
And our final question will go to Jeremy.
Yeah, just again about the evacuee response. The Ombudsman was saying today people were hearing back in 4 days, and that's just too long. Can you guarantee today that people who need help will hear back immediately, or at least within 24 hours?
I can tell you that we are doing everything humanly possible to answer the calls in that period that you're just saying. We do have a backlog that we have to address as well. So absolutely, that is the goal that we are is to ensure that everyone that is looking for the supports are connected to somebody within SPSA so that those mechanisms can be put in place to get those supports, whether they be a hotel, food vouchers, or financial support. We are striving to tighten that process up, and as you say, we're going to try to get it within exactly those timeframes.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our media availability. Have a safe rest of your day.